Mako, wait!
I'm sorry. But you never know. Maybe I'll do that someday.
Now I know for sure you're just teasing me.
As time goes by, the more I look back on the time I spent with him, the more I think that everything we had together was a lie.
じゃあ、私は一人で帰れるから。あとはごゆっくり。
サナちゃん。
The age gap relationships have been a massive staple in drama, romance, and shoujo anime. Minors get it on with adults, and for a while now, no one batted an eye towards this. Shows such as Marmalade Boy, Domestic Girlfriend, Nana, Peach Girl, Kodacha, Brothers Conflict, Kids on the Slope, and more all exhibit characters having romantic relationships with people several years, if not twice their age. My Wife is a High School Girl, for example, is a distinctive reason for the dangerous trope of the Japanese schoolgirl being over-sexualized and the inappropriate nature of making this relationship cute towards its audience. In order to make this coherent and non-convoluted, we will only examine a few shows: Marmalade Boy, Brothers Conflict, Nana, and Kodacha, and the changing portrayal of these relationships both on and off screen. In this video, we will discuss how these animes do or don't portray age gap relationships as cautionary tales towards grooming and abuse. I hope everyone watching this video understands that these relationships are always irresponsible, distasteful, and in some cases illegal. No matter how mature or smart someone is, it is absolutely unethical for anyone to be with someone multiple years older than they are. Specifically focusing on the teenage demographic, especially since shoujo rom-coms and dramas target female viewers, and the messages that they send need to shed positively on the experiences and stories that they need to see on screen, which for the most part in the early and late 2000s does not wholly depict on what teenage girls should be experiencing in their teenage years. Several months ago, I gave Marmalade Boy a watch, and yikes. This show has huge age disparities between Miki's friend Mako and their teacher Mr. Nomura. In episode 5, Yu Matsura spots Mako kissing Mr. Nomura in the library and hesitates to say anything to avoid a scandal with the school. Not only does this validate children justifying an inappropriate relationship, but also implicits lampshading, which is essentially when someone or something acknowledges a trope but not putting a stop to that said trope. So basically the writers are saying,
we know this relationship is not ideal or not ethical, but we're still gonna continue with it anyways because it gives us views, and of course we are a part of a capitalistic machine.
Mako's friends truly do not help her understand how toxic and inappropriate her relationship with Mr. Nomura is, especially when Miki agrees to go with Mako to Hiroshima to talk to Mr. Nomura about potentially getting back together, which that in and of itself is quite concerning. How in the world is this a good message to send to teenagers? Mako is a sophomore in high school, meaning that she can't be older than 16. I am pretty sure that Mr. Nomura is at least in his mid-20s. Probably his late 20s if you really look at his character design. And you mean to tell me that Mako would go all the way to Hiroshima to see Mr. Nomura when he clearly set boundaries after that incident with the school, that it would be in Mako's best interest to no longer interact with him so that Mako would not go through any mental distress and live as a normal high schooler? But as Mako and Miki go to Hiroshima to discuss more about the relationship that Mako really needs to have with Mr. Nomura. Mr. Nomura continuously tells Mako, we can no longer be together, it will not be good for your future, you make it so I really can't be without you, but it's necessary for your mental health. So you would think after all of those statements and Mako leaving, Mr. Nomura would just walk away from the situation and understand that he needed to stand his ground and do what was ethically correct. As soon as Mako starts to leave, this happens.
Are you really sure you want to stay with me?
I'll follow you.
It is clear that Mr. Nomura is a blatant predator, because it was also shown previously that he was meeting with Mako romantically in the school library when she was a middle schooler. She probably was barely 12 or 13 years old. That is just so disgusting. This relationship actually makes my skin crawl. The culmination of grooming and all this insidious behavior that Mr. Nomura continuously places onto Mako ends with them being married together forever. Now, obviously, the most frustrating part about this relationship is that her friends didn't even think for 1 second that this relationship was inappropriate. They were continuing to push it on, and when they were stating that they were getting married, Miki says that she was so happy that they're married and that they're together, and not even Yu or Ginta or Arimi said anything about it either, which is so disgusting. I do give Marmalade Boy a little bit of slack since it was made in the 90s. However, it shows just how early these relationships were looked at as forbidden romance. Then the cautionary tales that were targeting grooming and abuse, which in a lot of these cases continue to grow and spiral out of control. And in the end, this whole relationship was completely unacceptable.
I've been thinking of you as my little sister, but I have to admit those feelings have changed.
Out of all the animes that portray the age gap relationships, Brothers Conflict might be the worst. Brothers Conflict is a reverse harem anime depicting the life of 16-year-old Emma having to move into a new family because her dad got remarried. She lives with 13 teenage grown men and boys who are immediately attracted to her because of her beauty. Apparently, showing just a bit of platonic affection is enough to make any man fall for a girl. Love that we're still stereotyping beauty for all females. And not inclusive femininity for beauty as well, as I might add. Practically all the boys have fallen in love with her, and the men's actions towards her are actually sickening. Specifically looking at Fudo's relationship with Emma, although he is younger, he exhibits behaviors of a predator, and I physically felt uncomfortable watching his quote-unquote romantic gestures. This anime also kind of reminds me of Stockholm Syndrome, but in a very ugly way. Tsubaki and Asusa completely lampshaded through their feelings when they could have put a stop to it and their madness, and they continually knew this relationship and their actions towards Emma were insanely disgusting and predatory. Tsubaki continuously puts his body towards Emma in very uncomfortable ways. I remember in episode 4, Tsubaki did not get the acting job for the anime that he really wanted because he is supposedly the better actor and the one that every single person loves because of his popularity. And immediately after Asusa leaves, he asks Emma if he would be able to stay with him outside to talk and vent about his feelings so that he could be able to leave the situation behind him. But he does a lot more than just talking to Emma. He forces himself on her, kissing her without her consent, which the individual Emma could not provide. She is still a minor and Tsubaki is significantly older. I believe he's 23. And throughout the show, all the boys just start coming onto her, forcing himself onto her, and this whole entire time, Emma is just the most naive person I have probably ever met in a reverse harem anime. It is absolutely ridiculous. This girl has absolutely no backbone. Even in the final episode where she tells all the boys that she's just not into them that way, or actually not even all of them, just the people that were just ridiculously terrible. And instead of the relationships dying down and going into a more familial range, they begin to be grand gestures of love throughout her entire life in order for them to be with her. It takes this whole concept of all the boys just having a slight infatuation with her into a long-term, lifetime quest that almost 13 of the guys, I believe there's around 10 that are in love with her that are confirmed that want to be with her. That is extremely predatory and concerning and showcases a very inappropriate and illegal relationship.
And I was just about to graduate from my very average all-girls high school.
Shifting over to one of the better shoujo romance anime, Nana. It depicts a darker side of misogynistic tropes that men need to dominate over women in order to vindicate themselves. Oh yes, we love hegemonic masculinity. Hachiko, our main heroine, deals with a lot of mental and physical stress about her relationship struggles throughout the years of dating older men. And the fact that snacks are used in order to create a sense of comfort for Hachiko, because that is the only way she has been taught by all the other men that she's dated in the past in order for her to forget about her problems, shows just how grooming is so effective in teaching and insisting and relying on secrecy in order for the individual to continue to provide consent for the person that they need to have that relationship and intimacy with. Nana really does a great job in showcasing that this relationship takes a significant toll on the individual. I love how Hachiko was continually struggling to find herself because of the femininity that she has been used in order to look small, thin, and attractive to men. This is definitely displayed through her relationship with Takumi and Nobu. Both are musicians. Takumi is the head of Trap Nest, which is one of the famous bands in all of Japan in the Nana set universe. Takumi and Hachiko stumbled across each other at Nana Osaki's house after a Trap Nest performance. And from there, that signals the downfall to yet another toxic relationship. Although I understand her reasons for what she did, that doesn't negate that Takumi was a known womanizer and player before she showed a romantic interest in him. They sleep together on various occasions, and Hachiko not once stops this. She continually knows she is doing something that is wrong, but because of her past trauma, is unable to have the confidence to move on by herself. It's sad to see that Hachiko always needs a man to stay stable in life. There were very few moments when Nana Osaki was fully able to bounce her back to her bubbly, bright, and have her forget all about her life problems, boys, or any other stress that was put on her. Nobu, on the other hand, even though it's not an age gap relationship problem, shows a prime example about how Hachiko was completely groomed by older men and how it portrayed her viewpoint on the man that she truly loved, which was Nobu. Nobu was a musician for Blast, which was another up and coming band in the rock and roll scene in the Nana set universe. Nobu at first primarily looked at Hachiko as a friend. They talked on several occasions and they had such a great relationship. They both had a lot of things in common, both have imaginary partners, and they continually talk and walk together, and Hachiko starts to have an interest in him. But she's not the only one. Nobu also has feelings for her too, and was expressed when Takumi slept with her, and Nobu immediately got upset and angry at Takumi for using someone as good as Hachiko because she doesn't want her to fall victim to all the other womanized girls that Takumi has seduced in the past. Hachiko gets pregnant a little bit later as Nobu and Hachiko firmly establish their relationship, and because of this, because it was Takumi's baby, Hachiko immediately tries to break off the relationship with Nobu in order to make sure that he wouldn't be burdened by Hachiko's problems, to not give up his band and his dream of being a rock and roll guitarist. Nana in general teaches a lot of lessons regarding self-love and knowing what to do for other people than concerning about yourself. Which, let's face it, Nobu truly loved Hachiko and Hachiko truly loved Nobu, and they admitted their feelings to each other and actually had a very nice, stable, romantic, and positive relationship. But this clearly shows just how grooming and abuse towards a teenager can significantly affect their mindset into choosing someone that is completely not worth it and completely toxic for their life. Hi, so editing me is popping in to just clearly state that there is another age gap relationship in Nana between Sheen and Reira, but I think I didn't mention this because I wanted to show a difference and contrast in age gap relationships, as they don't always have to be predatory or disgusting, but can be justified and used in a way to teach a lesson towards its audience, which in this depiction would be correct. Nana also does a great job in showcasing the background of all the characters, with Sheen and Reira specifically. You can see that Reira is very much vulnerable. She is looked at as a vocal machine rather than a human that has a life outside of being in Trapnest. Following that, we also discover a little bit more about Sheen and his wreck of a home life from his mother committing suicide, which causes a lot of mental stress for him, which is why he is as wise and cunning as he is. However, he is acting like a gigolo and rummaging around women, which I didn't really quite like this, but in the character context and the backstory, it completely makes sense. I just wanted to add that in as a little bit of note, just to kind of explain where I was coming from. I'm also not favoring the cancellation of all of these shows. For example, Kodacha that I'm going to speak on later, I just wanted to touch on the predatory relationships that they exude in the show and how it might not always be portrayed as such, or cannot be focusing on messages that young women or men need to be focusing on in their teenage years. Finally, let's talk about something a little bit less grim. Kodacha. Kodacha is about a girl named Sana Kurata, a child star on the television show Child's Toy. She goes to school like any other elementary school kid and tells a story about her adventures through self-discovery, romance, and friendship. Even with this dramatic and comedic arcs, the age gap relationship between Rei and Sana does not go unnoticed. This is a perfect example of a justified relationship that is inappropriate and actually has put a stop to it, but doesn't affect Sana because she has learned and understood that this relationship is inappropriate, and Rei took the appropriate course of action to do so. Sana has never known love because of her busy life and doesn't live a completely normal elementary and middle school girl life. Rei goes along with Sana's wild imagination and pretends to be her boyfriend, which was quite annoying at first, but good job, Akito. You knocked some sense into him and told him about this inappropriate and illegal behavior. And of course, Akito likes Sana, but that's not the point. Another woman pops into the scene and is actually Rei's first love. Her name is Asako, and she was so busy with her job and career that she never had time to be with Rei. She comes back after her recent tour and movie and tells Rei how much she truly loves him, which leads Rei down a rabbit hole of breaking this relationship with Sana and returning to Asako, who he truly wants to be with. In my eyes, it took way too long to decide this. However, I am glad that he did the right thing, and Sana took this extremely maturely, but also shows her vulnerability of being abandoned by someone that she truly loved, which made the story more real. Once again, it shows how children and teenagers take this age gap relationship with an adult very seriously, and doesn't negate the fact that they are emotional, they feel trauma, and it's something that makes them feel bad about themselves and triggers unwanted and unwarranted responses from all the people around them in order for them to understand how this relationship truly makes the individual feel. Anime loves to romanticize characters, but I feel like in a way it can be very toxic, as anime has had quite the inspiration for a lot of things. Cosplay, Halloween costumes, parties. It has a lot to bring to the table in terms of culture and bringing other like-minded anime people together. I like how Kodacha completely displayed the entire spectrum of this relationship. The toxic parts, the energetic parts, and also the parts of her moving on and finding something else that gives her that same happiness than being with a boy. And I think that's what a lot of these shows, not even just anime, but teen TV in general, need to understand. If they want these type of relationships to exist, which in my opinion are old, satired, and don't wholly depict the struggles that a minor goes through when dating someone that is significantly older than them, I wish if they want to go in that direction, direction, especially with anime, because reverse harem is deliberate in the age gap relationship. I would just make sure that you are targeting every single aspect of that relationship, the ups, the downs, and the in-betweens. That way it seems more relatable and more real, even though it is quite inappropriate and should not be placed on screen. In conclusion, anime has taken a significant shift in its depiction of the age gap relationship, and not all, but entirely needs to show more realistic sides of how someone interacts with someone that is significantly older than them. Do better, it's 2021. That is all I have for you today. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a lovely rest of your day.